Scotland's Role in the British Empire documentary. Intro. There was a lot of carnage in Scotland and Ireland as William and Mary fashioned their own little realm, and that was first called the English domain on a guide distributed in 1690. Many countries in the ancient time helped other countries to build their state, and here we're going to talk about Scotland's role for the British Empire. Main body. The student of history professor C.H. Firth recorded in 1918 that the expression English domain was utilized as ahead of schedule as 1708, yet he contended it didn't come into regular public utilization until the finish of the 7 Years' War in 1763. Until that time, the words English or British realm alluded to the island of Great Britain and its states across the Atlantic. What drove the foundation of the empire? At the hour of the Union, England previously had generous provinces over in North America. Scotland had none, and the bombed adventure at Darien had bankrupted the nation. Giving Scotland admittance to these provinces for exchange alongside the security of the Royal Navy was one of the principal impetuses for the parcel of rogues to decide in favor of the Union, which was a bad fix. One more of the principal drivers of the domain was religion. Scotland in the 17th century had been riven by strict struggle, most prominently at the hour of the Covenanters, huge numbers of whom were martyred for their faith in a more extraordinary type of Presbyterianism. One tradition of the Presbyterians in Scotland and the eccentricities of the English Reformation was the enormously against Catholic nature of the Union, which, as indicated by Queen Anne, was more about making sure about the Protestant progression than everything else. Right up until the present time, as is expressed in the Act of Union, Article Number 2, no papist can sit on the seat of the United Kingdom. Ruler Harry and Meghan Markle might have saved themselves a difficult situation and eliminated themselves from the imperial progression and consequently the regal family by flying along to their neighborhood Catholic church and getting themselves sanctified through water. It is likewise why I battle that the UK is an institutionally partisan state. Spreading the Protestant confidence was a veritable driving force for realm building, and as we will see 1 week from now, Scots were to the front in the times of evangelist work that went with Britain's supreme victory and colonization of what ultimately added up to 1/4 of the total populace and 1/5 of its property region. When did Scotland truly start to have an effect in the domain? The initial not many long periods of the Union were delicate, and even before Queen Anne passed on in 1714, there had been a movement in the House of Lords the earlier year to forsake the entire task, a movement which was lost by just 4 votes and which hence mirrored the profound divisions in Scotland over the Union. Most of individuals had a problem with the Union in 1707. However, the danger of military activity against the nonconformists controlled their fights. The developing British realm gave that open doors across the world fit to be taken by Scots, who started to emigrate in their thousands. When of the 7 Years' War between 1756 and 1763, Scottish fighters, especially Highlanders, were among the best regiments of the British Army, and the consistently expanding size of the Royal Navy was supported by the quantities of Scots who were serving in it. The Treaty of Paris in 1763 halted the war and left Britain well while in transit to turning into the world's greatest maritime and provincial force. What job did the Scottish Enlightenment play in domain building? The second 50% of the 18th century and first long periods of the 19th century were a period of uncommon scholarly accomplishment in Scotland. One of the Enlightenment's most noteworthy masterminds, straightforwardly affected the huge development of the British realm, despite the fact that his genuine job in the inciting of the empire is regularly discussed. Adam Smith's book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, distributed in 1776, contains both a solid enemy of colonialist note as to the states in the USA. He essentially proposed a type of devolution for them, and an accentuation on exchange as the power which would improve Britain and different nations. This was acknowledged by different governments, and assurance of business by the Royal Navy turned into the backbone of the developing realm. Some have considered this to be business soul as the consequence of Calvinist philosophy, which is said to have advanced the business ethic of difficult work, frugality, and the certain confirmation which came from the familiarity with enrollment of God's choice. However, similarly, the Scottish ability to abuse the open doors may likewise be clarified by the long convention of dealer adventuring in Europe in the 15th, 16th, and 17th hundred of years, which had expanded skylines, refined business methods, and decreased dread of unfamiliar societies. Outro. So Scots were in at the empire's beginnings, and the best age of the British domain was still to come, with Scots intensely associated with this greatest, all things considered. Scottish imports of tobacco were generally diverted to England and ports in Europe. Tobacco represented the greater part of Scottish fairs during the 1750s.